We are not live. We are not live on Facebook right now.
Oh, okay. So I assume we're live. We're checking on.
We're not live on YouTube either. It's just waiting for Up North Live.
Oh, okay. Turn your mic off. All right, welcome back. We were trying to get we have 3 platforms here, X, Facebook, and YouTube. We were making sure we were live on all 3. So let's start over here with the setup tonight. I'm Joe Charlevoix along with Trevor Robadeaux, and we have been watching this line of thunderstorms, which has been working across the state of Wisconsin tonight. Here's a look at that. A lot of lightning with these storms. We've had multiple tornado warnings as these storms have worked across Wisconsin. Haven't seen any damage reports yet from these storms, but of course what we're wondering is as these storms approach our area, are they going to be able to maintain their intensity? And they're just now approaching Lake Michigan. You can see Milwaukee to north of Chicago is where some pretty intense storms are located, and then north of Milwaukee up around Sheboygan, Wisconsin, Manitowoc up into the Green Bay area is where the most intense line of these thunderstorms is right now. I'm going to put the watches and warnings on top of that. We'll take the radar off, and these orange areas are where we have severe thunderstorm warnings, also where we have special marine warnings in several spots here. Put the radar back on, and I don't know if we can go to Trevor. Trevor, we're looking at these probably coming into areas around Ludington, Manistee. I would say in the matter of probably 2 hours or so from now.
Yes, we are looking at those line of storms coming over Lake Michigan. It does look like they will be impacting us somewhere on the order of around 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. is when some of those southwesterly and westerly areas along the Lake Michigan shoreline will be getting the first round of those storms heading through. And that's also where we're expecting the majority of our severe weather to be, is closer to Lake Michigan, as we do have the enhanced risk outlined in some of those areas in South Benzie County down through parts of Manistee, Wexford County, Mason County is included in there, down towards Big Rapids and Lake County, Wexford County, Clare County even included in that. That darker brown is the enhanced risk, where we are thinking that's where the majority of our more severe weather will be. That, of course, doesn't mean that we can't get severe weather elsewhere, as a large swath of the remainder of northern Michigan outlined in a slight risk as well. And that's, again, from this same system. And the main impacts that we're thinking with this, as Joe has already mentioned, is primarily large, potentially large hail, maybe even some damaging hail, potentially up to perhaps an inch in diameter or maybe even larger. And then also sustained or wind gusts up to 58 or even 60 plus miles per hour in many areas. So some straight line damaging winds potential, maybe some downed trees, potential power outages. Beyond that, we're not expecting too much more. There is a very slight chance for a tornado, but it's not very high. Typically, we don't get too much of the tornado risk here in northern Michigan, but it is possible. Certainly with some of these storms that are, as you can see there.
You know what, Trevor, I want to go to, you see these storms are just working through Milwaukee on the other side of the lake. Let's see if we can pull up our weather camera there. This is Milwaukee. It's a little blurry, but just a few minutes ago, Trevor and I were watching this camera. Just a significant amount of wind that just went through there. It looks like the main gust front has passed by. You can see traffic's moving fine over the bridge there near the harbor along Lake Michigan, but that's what it looks like currently in Milwaukee, where the main area of storms has just passed through. By the way, the white areas here is where we have also a bit of hail. Again, this is still on the other side of the lake, but what I want to do, Trevor, is kind of time this out for our area overnight tonight. So here's forecast radar coming in. And as Trevor just mentioned, this line of storms will start reaching the Ludington, Manistee areas right there. So that's 10:30, 11 o'clock. And if you look at the time right now, it's 8 o'clock. So we have about a 2 to 3 hour window until this starts to arrive. And that, to me, you look at that, Trevor, it looks like, you know, not a classic case where you have discrete supercell thunderstorms, but more of a kind of a line developing, which typically is more straight line wind damage potential or some large hail.
Yep, that's right. That's typically what we're thinking whenever we see systems like this. You know, a few hours ago when we were tracking this system, there were a lot of those more discrete, isolated, stronger supercells that Joe was just mentioning in parts of Minnesota and Wisconsin. And we saw several tornado warnings pop up with those cells. But as Joe has mentioned, once this thing comes across the lake, it's going to become a lot more organized into more like a large straight line. And again, as Joe had mentioned, typically with those systems, the biggest thing that we do see is some embedded larger hail, of course, a brief period of downpouring rain, some hail potential, and then also large straight line winds or heavy straight line winds. And again, there is the isolated potential that some of those straight line winds can be on the severe side, which, as a reminder, would require the sustained or wind gusts to be at least 58 miles per hour or more. Otherwise, yeah, we're not really expecting those isolated, stronger cells. But again, that doesn't mean, as we mentioned, that a tornado isn't possible. It's just not as likely as hail or damaging wind.
Yeah, and I agree with that completely. I think the tornado threat is low. It's not zero, but it's low. It would spin up within a storm within that line. It wouldn't be like, you know, those big stovepipe tornadoes you see in the plains. It wouldn't be anything like that. I think for our area, if we do, it's still a question mark, but if we do see any severe weather, hail, and as Trevor just mentioned, damaging winds would be probably the primary threats. Let's time this out a little bit. So again, this is 10, 11 o'clock, coming on shore from Marquette all the way down through Manistee, Ludington, Big Rapids. By the time we get to, let's stop the clock here around 1:30, Grayling, Gaylord, up into Newberry. And if you're over in Alpena, Sault Ste. Marie, Drummond Island, you know, you're looking at 2, 3 in the morning before this arrives. Another thing I'd like to point out is this line of storms will be weakening as it moves across. We're getting into the middle of the night. It's not optimal for severe weather. So this line of storms should be weakening. I think south of Traverse City is the best risk for severe weather, the most prone area, and west of I-75. Because I think by late tonight, Trevor, a lot of this line will be weakening as it moves inland.
Yes, and that is what we are expecting. And as I mentioned before, due to the expectation that the line is going to weaken as it moves across the region, which typically does happen. That's usually the setup, is line comes across Lake Michigan, and most of the time, especially this time of year with those colder water temperatures, it really saps away a lot of the energy that's available. And on top of that, we're not going to have any of the daytime heating because it's going to happen so late anyhow. But as it tracks across the region, it will begin to weaken. And so that's why the main time frame for us is really going to be in those hours of 10 p.m. to around no later than 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning. Anything beyond that, the severe potential is very minimal, if not zero. Although we don't want to say it's necessarily zero, but it is very minimal at that point. So the more inland this system tracks as it moves across I-75 towards the east of I-75 and up towards Sault Ste. Marie, Drummond Island, Alpena, and just generally anything east of I-75. At that point, we're looking at more like just a line of thunderstorms and rain. Again, there'll still be some gusty winds along with that. Some hail will still be possible, and all of that's included within severe thunderstorms. But the severe potential at that point would be a lot more on the minimal side. And Joe there pointing out the number of strikes across that area.
Just in that little box.
Yeah,
almost
just that little box.
Lightning strikes.
Certainly, that's something that we hadn't really talked about. But
a lot of lightning.
We are expecting a lot of lightning. So if you are a lighter sleeper, you may have to contend with a lot of thunder tonight with all these lightning strikes. And so, yeah, certainly a very active system. Of course, we will be tracking its severe potential as it comes across the lake here, which is beginning to happen as it is beginning to exit Milwaukee, or at least still tracking through it, going through Sheboygan, going through the Green Bay area.
And I would say if you're in that Ludington, Manistee areas, you know, you've got a couple hours still until this makes landfall. But prepare ahead of time, the potential for some damaging wind or large hail with this cluster of thunderstorms moving through. The other thing is I want to take you just beyond this, where of course we have the severe weather threat, but let's move into tomorrow. By the time you wake up in the morning, the sun's going to be out. These storms will be long gone. It'll be a nice sunny but breezy day tomorrow. So the storms, there they go. And there's tomorrow morning, maybe a little fog early. Then tomorrow evening, this is completely separate from tonight. We're going to cloud back up tomorrow evening across parts of northern Michigan. In fact, I'll show you a little different scale here. And then look what happens tomorrow night. This is 5, 6, 7 o'clock. We have another round of showers and thunderstorms tomorrow night. Trevor, big severe threat? No. But we could get a little bit of smaller hail with some of these storms tomorrow night and some gusty wind. We have a lot of cooler air aloft, so we'll get some rain tomorrow night. Just pointing that out if you have Friday night plans.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something to keep in mind is that once the system does pass, we'll, as you mentioned, have a really nice morning with lots of sunshine out, but it won't remain that way all day. Once we get towards the evening, we will have those chances for some lighter showers to pop back into the region, and then towards very late evening, closer to nightfall again, we'll have another round of showers and a few embedded thunderstorms. Again, as Joe had mentioned, there is a slight severe risk with this, but it's a marginal risk, so that's much less than the risk that we're seeing tonight. At most, again, a few isolated thunderstorms, maybe some small hail, and of course lightning being embedded in those, but not much. It's also important to note that once that system passes late tomorrow night, a big swath of cold air will move through the region. We'll go back to colder temperatures this weekend. We'll have some passing showers. We'll call it scattered showers on Saturday with mostly cloudy skies and a bit of a dreary day and also colder temperatures. But before that happens tomorrow, we'll still be on the warmer side into the 70s and potentially some 80s.
Yeah, it's going to be a warm one tomorrow for one more day. So kind of recapping things tonight, 40s and 50s, storms between, again, we just showed you that 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. There is some risk for severe weather, especially west of I-75. And then tomorrow is our Friday, 10 the work week. Now in the morning, lots of sun, 72 to 84. Look at those temperatures that Trevor just mentioned. It's going to be a warm day tomorrow. Increasing clouds though in the afternoon, and then late tomorrow, a few showers or thunderstorms, especially tomorrow evening. And we mentioned the cooler weather. Look at the warm day tomorrow, and then look after that. We drop back into the 50s. In fact, we kind of stay there right through the middle part of next week. So a little showery over the weekend. It won't be a washout by any stretch, Trevor, but you know, a few showers around, and temperatures generally holding on in the 50s. Let's see if we have any questions. I don't know, Trevor, if you have any questions.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. I'm gonna make my way over towards you now, so we're kind of both just on the same camera. I've been monitoring the comments on our Facebook Live. This is just what's on our Facebook. Mark Lee, who is a very common person that we see in all of our posts and joins us live all the time. He says, hello, Up North Live. Hello, Mark. Thank you for joining us once again tonight. And then Phil Little says, earlier the NWS was talking about very high winds and large hail for the Big Rapids, Canadian Lakes, Mount Pleasant area. Hope that will fizzle out. We don't necessarily. Too. Yeah, we certainly do. Again, the best case scenario is that there's no severe weather. That would be the best case scenario. But at this moment, we are still expecting isolated to perhaps even scattered severe weather storms, especially in the western side, west of I-75. Again, from the hours of around 10 p.m. to or maybe around midnight, and then towards around 2 or 3 a.m. is when we expect that to really start to really fizzle out.
And it's that primary area you just said, Frankfort, Manistee, Ludington, along the lakeshore. That's the most likely area, most prone to severe weather, that wind crossing the lake there. And then again, the hope is that as these storms move inland, some they'll weaken. But we've got everything up, running. We're keeping an eye on everything, and we'll have updates tonight online and on air if need be. And we hope you have a safe one. Enjoy the sun tomorrow, which will be nice, at least the first half of the day.
Yes, it will.
And have a good weekend as well. Thanks for tuning in.